right, great. Well, welcome everyone here today. We're here today talking about Salesforce and how to deliver seamless customer experiences with AWS. My name is Randy Hand. I'm a senior manager here at AWS, and I'm joined by my colleague Chris.
I'm Chris Featherstone. I'm on the product manager on the Salesforce Service Cloud Voice team, so it's good to be with you, Randy.
Yeah, well, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So we have a few topics. First of all, we're going to discuss some of the key challenges today in the contact center. And we're going to talk about how AWS has a set of services that helps our customers overcome those different challenges. Then we're going to take a look at how Salesforce has specifically solved this problem with their Service Cloud Voice product. That includes a demo, and then we'll wrap it up with some next steps. So first of all, why does this even matter? Well, customer service is changing from something that you had to do in the past to something that now materially impacts your business. You see here some statistics about how customers perceive the experience they have with different brands and how they take action based on those brands. 32% will churn after just a single bad experience with a company. On the other side, customers will pay a premium if the company that they're working with provides great service. 16% price premium in this case. And I would add to this that it matters more at the corporate level as well. Other studies have shown that for companies that do customer service really well versus companies that don't, their stock price over the last 15 years, the difference in growth is about 3 to 1. So it matters to your business how you do customer service, and it impacts your top line, your bottom line, and of course, we want to provide customers with a great experience. So we're going to be talking about how you can use some of the different tools in AWS to do that today. But first, let's talk about some of the key challenges. So we commissioned Forrester to look at a broad set of customers and understand where were they struggling today in trying to deliver this great customer experience. And they identified a number of different things. One was operationally, the biggest cost factor is, of course, the agents. So having high agent turnover because they're not, they don't have environments and tools that help them do their job well, long handle time, so you need more agents, limited visibility into what's going on in the contact center, and being able to measure that and then adapt and make changes. The inability to scale up or down easily. Now this has an operational component, but it also has a cost component to it. Customers would have to buy and plan for their peak periods that sometimes only last a matter of days or maybe a week or two per year, and they didn't like that they had to carry that cost the entire year. Painful, frequent outages, lots of reasons that this was the case, but suffice it to say that building resilience and redundancy and having to figure that out for every single customer is not an easy thing to do. And we've improved vastly on that. This is what we'll show you today. Let me skip the next one and go to the last one, complex and expensive integrations. This traditionally has been an industry where you had to piece together lots of different components. Those result in many bespoke integrations, which are not only costly to implement, but operationally they're a pain to maintain over time and keep afloat. Now, let me go back to the one, because we're going to focus most of the talk today around how to access AI technologies within your contact center. So before we go there, just level set a little bit on terminology, because we hear the terms AI and ML talked about a lot, sometimes interchangeably, and that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. So I came up with a pretty simple way that I like to explain this to people, and that is I have pets at home. And has anyone here ever bought anything off Amazon?
I did.
Yeah? Anyone bought anything today? How about since we started this talk?
There's about 1,000 people that raise their hands. So
okay, so
amazing.
If you've ever been on Amazon, you've seen this little thing like you might like. You guys seen that? Well, I was on there and I had to buy some dog food and a little toy for Christmas or something. And the next time I went on there, I saw something that blew me away. It was a sweater for my cat. And two things struck me with this. Number one, I didn't even know such a thing existed. And number two, I found myself oddly really needing this cat sweater. So of course I bought it. And that's a good example of machine learning. So machine learning is taking a lot of different inputs and predicting an outcome from it. So they looked at my buying history, they knew that I had pets, they saw the other things I purchased, and they deduced correctly that I would love a cat sweater. Mm-hmm. Now, AI, on the other hand, is when you take that technology and you apply it to human cognition. So think about things like taking speech and turning that into text, taking text and turning that into speech, being able to understand what I'm trying to tell you based on the words that I say, things like that. So AI is really the human element, and that's why it's so important in the contact center, because we want a human element to that. We want a human experience. Mm-hmm. I think Salesforce calls this a human-centric experience, rather than feeling like you're talking to a robot, which we've all had that experience. And so we bring a bunch of technologies to bear in this space, and there's two different ways customers typically consume these. One is when we were looking as Amazon at solving our needs for customer service, we ran into all of those same hurdles that we mentioned before. We ended up building our own solution because we couldn't find anything that met all of our needs in the market. And we built that, developed it, scaled it for about 10 years, and eventually brought that to market as Amazon Connect. And one of our core tenets was we need to apply these new technologies to make that experience better. We didn't want to just replicate what was out in the market. We wanted to actually make it better for people. The second way that customers use these technologies is packaged together in something called CCI, Contact Center Intelligence. So this takes the different AI services that we have and puts them together into a usable and easily consumable form that solves key use cases in the contact center. We're going to talk about what some of those are. But first, let's talk a little bit about Amazon Connect. We have really 5 basic tenets we looked at when we were bringing this out. We wanted it to be easy, not require a bunch of bespoke skill sets to set up and maintain and make changes to it. We wanted a single application for whatever you wanted to do, not having to jump between a bunch of different technologies in order to deliver experiences across different channels, for example. Of course, you need reporting, real-time and historical, to run your contact center, to know what's happening, to be able to adjust and adapt, all of those things that the cloud brings you with agility and flexibility. And then the concept of embedding AI and ML was really foundational to us looking at solving this contact center problem. In fact, if you've ever talked to anyone at AWS, one of the interesting things that I found when I came here is that every year, the general manager for every single business within Amazon is asked a set of questions about their business. And one of those questions is, how are you using machine learning or AI to improve your business? And they have to answer that every year. And so it's a very ingrained principle within Amazon, and we wanted to bring that to bear in the contact center as well. Why? Because of what's at the top of that rainbow. Yeah. We want this to be a personal experience. We want it to be dynamic, to adjust to your needs as they come up. And we want it to be very natural. We want it to feel like you're interacting with a human, and that we know you, we can predict what you want. And if we can't, we can very quickly resolve your issue and make it a very frictionless experience for you. Now, CCI comes at it from a little bit different approach. So we're trying to do a lot of the same things functionally, but this is a technology that can be plugged into any contact center technology. And we think about three main use cases here. One is self-service or virtual agents. Sometimes people will just call these bots. The idea here is pretty simple. There are a number of things that happen in a contact that you don't really need a human to do. In fact, many people prefer to do it via self-service rather than have to wait or engage with a human. In fact, I don't know how many hundreds of things I've bought off of Amazon, and I've had issues. Things don't show up, you buy the wrong thing, you find your kid bought something you didn't know about. I've resolved every single one of those, and I've never spoken to an Amazon agent.
Yeah.
Because when I go onto the app, it has a pretty good idea of what I want, how to resolve it, and I can quickly take care of it myself. It's a beautiful experience. That is what we want to empower others to be able to do as well. The next thing is real-time call analytics and agent assist. So one of the frustrations in the contact center from an agent perspective is they're asked to do a lot of different things. They are multitasking in a way that most of us don't have to do, and that usually involves them seeking out different pieces of information in different systems, all while trying to listen and make sure that you're having a great experience. It's not easy to do, it's very frustrating, and it results in subpar customer experiences as well as agent satisfaction. So what we try to do is use these tools around AI to actually bring that content to the agent so they can serve that customer with the right information at the right time and get their issue resolved quickly.
We hope this one feature alone will kill that awkward question that we always get when they know they're coming up with screens of, so how's your day going?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I'll tell you how my day's going. I'm super ticked off because I got to talk to you and be dealing with this issue. So don't ask me questions that'll make me worse, right?
Or my favorite, man, my PC is running slow today.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I don't blame them. It is a tough job to juggle all of that at one time.
Pressure cooker.
Yeah. And then finally, post-call analytics. One of the really interesting things today is that with analytics and with big data, generally we've made a lot of progress with that in the past 10, 15 years. We've gotten much better at collecting enormous amounts of data, sorting that, sifting it, deriving insights from it. The contact center produces an enormous amount of data, but historically it's been very hard to mine that data. And part of the reason it's really difficult is that a lot of that data is in a voice format, a call recording. So some customers will want to check on agent performance. So what do? They listen to a very small, statistically probably insignificant subset of those recordings, and then try to extrapolate that to some business insight that may or may not really be there based on their sampling size. Well, what if you could take every conversation, every data point of that entire interaction and capture that as data? You've now transformed this very manual, hard to derive problem into something that can be treated with all of the techniques that we know now to process big data problems.
Yeah, I think about the verbal pieces that you're gathering out, but all the nonverbal. That
Absolutely.
How do you look at the pausing and the timing between words that are spoken, and then derive that there's somebody that's emotionally escalated because they're speaking faster, or their volume's coming up, or there's speak over. Those kind of data points that you wouldn't able to get, even in the case where a lot of call centers only record the customer channel, not the agent channel at the same time, and then combine those two to listen to the entire call, right?
Yeah, and that's a great point, because sometimes you want to go back and find a particular piece of data. Very difficult to do traditionally, but if you now have a digital format, transcriptions of all those interactions, it becomes a search engine problem.
Yeah.
So let's just real quickly talk about the high-level architecture behind these different technologies and some of the core services that we use to derive this. So self-service, call comes in, a chat, a digital channel. There's three services that typically are engaged there. One is called Amazon Lex. Does anyone have an Echo device in your home? Talk to Alexa every now and then?
Another about 1,500 people that raise their hands.
All right. So think of Lex as the commercial brother of Alexa. So it's a natural language processing engine which takes the things that I say and it derives my intent. And it does this in a really clever way where I don't have to try to figure out all the things that you might say in order to mean something. I just have to define a couple of those and it will extrapolate that to all the other permutations to understand what I want to do. And then when you know what I want to do, it makes it much easier to then get me to the right agent or get me to the right self-service or solve my problem in the contact center. Poly is a text-to-speech. So when you call up, instead of, hi, how can I help you today, press 1, press 2, you can now treat that interaction dynamically. Hi, Randy, how are you today? I see you ordered a cat sweater last week. Are you calling about your cat sweater? As a matter of fact, I am. And then it can get me to the right place. And then Kendra, which is a search engine which allows you to search across those experiences to derive the insights. And there's a bunch of tooling around these technologies to help you get to a great experience without being a data scientist, without being a natural language expert, without being a coding expert. We've packaged these up into ways that you can very quickly get to the experience that you're looking for. Agent Assist. So imagine that as the customer is talking to you, you have this AI engine that's running. It's capturing what the customer is saying, but it also is analyzing that to understand, is there a sentiment associated with this that's good or bad? Are there key phrases and things that are being mentioned in that conversation? Does that then point to some particular type of issue? And ultimately, what was the whole call about, right? One of the things that agents hate to do is summarize calls afterwards or go through a pick list of 50 different disposition codes and they just pick the top one every time because that's easy.
Yeah.
Well,
or that's how they're incentivized.
Absolutely. Yeah. And now you can actually figure that out on their behalf, have all the notes done for them, have a record of sentiment. Back to the point about searching for the needle in a haystack, you can now say, hey, look, where are my top performing agents? Where did I have bad interactions today? Where did I have good interactions? What were the consistent themes across all of these? And this lets you capture all of that data, as well as help the agent drive that conversation in real time. And that's an important piece as well. You're bringing all of those insights about what is happening in the call to the agent. That could include things like looking up knowledge articles or a script on what they're supposed to do next or a next best action, an upsell opportunity. There's lots of things that you can drive to the agent to get the right experience for both the customer and for them. And then post-call analytics. So after the call's over, you want to analyze your conversations and figure out what went well, what didn't. Again, things like call categorization save a lot of time for the agent, and that after call work state, they can quickly turn, go to their next contact. And Call summarization helps you identify trends throughout all of the conversations in your contact center. Those can all be fed into things like agent scoring, and of course for compliance reasons. Sometimes customers just blurt out sensitive data. Being able to go back and scrub PII data, things like that, out of that record is important for many of our customers who deal with that type of sensitive information.
Or did the agent say what they needed to say in the beginning of the call?
That's a great point as well.
Do we know?
Yeah, compliance, adherence to that. And a couple of the technologies that are used here, which we also saw in the Agent Assist, are Amazon Transcribe. And so in this case, it's working in a post-call manner off of the call recordings. Can also do the real time that we saw just now. And then Amazon Comprehend, and this is a sentiment engine. So it will analyze what was said to try to determine key trends, sentiment, is it good, bad. You can actually look at how that trends over the course of a call. Were there things, are there training opportunities for your agents where this will typically cause the sentiment to trend negative or positive? Those are now insights that you can derive out of all of those interactions with your customers.
I love the fact too that these types of technologies now turn really expensive propositions like quality management on their ear. Because the old school quality management was trying to big brother everything and try to add these things after the fact that it was really expensive and try to get as far up into the stream as possible and get to the media gateway and then try to analyze it and lock the data down and almost hold it hostage, right? And we see that from a lot of vendors. And this blows that wide open and says, well, this is by design as a native, set of services. So derive out what you want, drive the outcomes you want, let it map to the business, business deliverables you need, and here's all the data to support it. Or to go find and ask questions, right?
That's right, and I think it's what you're speaking to is a broader trend within AWS, which we would call a democratization of these type of technologies. This used to be the domain of very rare and expensive data scientist resources. Our goal is to make this available for every developer, for every line of business owner, to be able to now take advantage of these technologies without, being a specialist in that area. And focus on your business case and how these can apply to that. And you see here just some of the different services that we talked about that come to bear in both of those solutions, Connect and CCI. Why does it matter? At the end of the day, we also had Forrester look at sets of customers running, in this case on Connect, to see, well, okay, it all sounds great, but what was really the impact? And the punchline here at the bottom is, 241% ROI compared to other vendors who are in this space. This is comprised of not only reducing the effort to get agents and supervisors trained and up to speed and in reducing that friction, but also by reducing the call volume. So think about the things we talked about, like self-service, shortening average handle time, things like Agent Assist, being able to get the contact to the right agent at the right time, and using that human-like interaction in order to do that. 5 years ago, when we launched Amazon Connect, Salesforce was a partner right out of the gate with AWS. And we spent 2 to 3 years working together in the field, doing integrations with a traditional approach called CTI. And over that time, we were asked by customers, we really like using the platforms together, but can you make it easier for us to consume it? Can you make it easier for us to support this long term? We have in our head all of these features. I went to Dreamforce, I went to reInvent, and I saw lots and lots of interesting technologies, but I'm not quite sure how to piece those together to solve this problem in my business. Can you help me to do that?
Yeah.
And so a little over 2 years ago now, we embarked on a new journey, and that resulted in Service Cloud Voice, which both of these scenarios we've talked about come to bear, the pre-integrated Amazon Connect, and also using CCI to bridge perhaps some technology gaps that are in other vendors. And what you see here, just a high-level architecture of many of the different services that come to bear in that solution.
Yeah.
So with that, let's talk about a real-world example. Let's talk about something real that customers can use today and how you've brought these to bear in the Service Cloud Voice product. So I'll turn it over, Chris, to you.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, you guys are the kings of providing infrastructure and managed services that make it consumable for like the builders of the world to just wire all these things together. What we also found though is that organizations were coming to us both mutually and saying, hey, I may not have the attitude or the aptitude to build everything. I may need to just buy it. So what do you got for me, right? And so what we did is we looked at it from the perspective of we have, field service and we have service clouds and we have all of these different, systems and scenarios. And most of these call centers, and if not 99.9% of them, are utilizing Salesforce CRM data to drive the context of the customer. And so, there was a ton of integrations over the last, 6 or 7 years just into the agent desktop. Like, how do we get that data in to drive a better contextual experience for the agent, like you talked about, who's, maybe looking through 20 different screens to find this information. So let's pull it all together. And so, that was what a lot of the basis for this stemmed from was, let's take the best of all worlds and take the best infrastructure and build, and take our service cloud and put it on top of that and then go to market with it, right? Because we definitely are in these parallel work streams going to these organizations, and now this allows us to say, hey, at the the top of the business and right in the middle of the the technical counterparts of the group, we're going to meet in the middle and provide an unbelievable solution. And that's what the goal is here. So when we look at this, when we launch Service Cloud Voice, there's some key features. First and foremost, we ride on top of Amazon Connect, and we derive all of that value back through into a more seamless, application that people are familiar with within Salesforce. And it gives us the ability to look at this in terms of, I want to get a 360 view of the customer, right, first and foremost. But I also want to have, an agent experience integrated right there. So I'm not flip-flopping between it. And you talked about, the real-time assist, right, and suggestions. And you talked about, gathering up the keywords and those things. So again, we take a huge benefit from that and derive it into the information right there at the fingertips of the agent. And so we can see what's going on from both a voice and an omnichannel perspective and have all the data right there. So that's probably the most key and critical thing, is the efficiency and time to value that it allows for the agents who are, being measured and managed, to these things, to be able to get this information.
And by the way, that's what customers expect now. When I call up a vendor that I've maybe purchased something from, I expect them to know that I'm a customer, who I am, my purchase history. I don't want to explain that 2 or 3 times, and that's the beauty of putting these things together, is you have a great picture of the customer.
Yeah.
That information is really valuable to drive the right experience for someone contacting.
I mean, how many times do they get the color of your cat sweater wrong?
Right? It took a couple tries.
So, but they know that. They know that you've got every color of the rainbow in there, and you're calling in because purple didn't show up or something, right? But they know that.
That's right.
Because the historical
maybe
context
I need
as
the
well.
matching boots to go with the sweater.
Hey,
I mean,
the heart wants what the heart wants, right? So when we dig into this a little bit deeper, we also really focus on this from the perspective of the jobs to be done and who are those personas we need to map to and why and how do we help them. I mean, good Lord, the agents are under a pressure cooker all the time, right? And there's so many metrics and measures, and no wonder they, don't want to, there's a lot of attrition, right?
72% of agents surveyed this year say they're thinking about changing jobs. 72%.
And the best part is they're going to change probably to another potential call center job because they're paying more or something, right? Little things. But I would hate to be a supervisor having to go through and comb through and listen to calls. Like, kill me now, I'd rather be on the phones, right? It would be, it'd be insane. So we want to be able to unlock more data for them And then at the same time, you know, IT's there, like kind of folding their arms in the corner saying, well, what are you going to do with my stuff that I've implemented over the last, you know, and I was thinking when you were talking, remember those old prem systems that would take literally 2 to 3 years to implement.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about the value conversations you had in terms of time to value, and now we're doing it in just a few months.
And then when you get them up, you don't ever want to touch it, because if you break it, no one knows how to fix it.
Except for, you know, the IT guys that are in there saying, do not touch the duct tape and baling wire that we use to put this together. And so what we want to do is just make, you know, and really it's more about a distribution of their abilities to do other things that can support the main things that you don't need to do anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And that now goes, which I love, at things like AI, which, you know, previous it was super expensive to do. So we want to be able to unlock all of this rich information for each one of these personas. This is how we approach it with Service Cloud Voice. When we think about this, though, from a customer 360, this has been an ongoing thing from Salesforce for probably the last 4 or 5 years, but I want to gather all that information. I want to know exactly what's going on with them. And so the call center and driving brand and driving loyalty, you know, became front and center very quickly, because guess what everybody was using us for? To try to understand that better. And so when we pull that in, and now with the, you know, advent of Slack, now we've got not only, you know, customer communication that's going on with whatever channel they decide they want to communicate on. And now we're dealing with digital natives and digital immigrants, right? And who and how to communicate in those ways. But now we're also saying, hey, listen, intercommunication between, why don't you use Slack to actually be more productive and more proactive? And companies are doing this, right? And so we're utilizing, again, those existing communication streams to actually help drive more information about purposeful, contextual conversations and how to make some of these decisions. And at the same time, you know, because they're literally a bunch of managed services, you know, security and compliance and, you know, some of those aspects that we need to absolutely have there as infrastructure is already there. You've built it, we've built it. There's, you know, customers can just take that and run with it now. And so this is what we're doing sitting on top of AWS and why it's so key and critical. And really, you know, even just the stacks for our core service is on AWS, right? Our Slack is on AWS. You know, Service Cloud Voice, again, utilizing all the rich technologies you guys have. So that's all fine and dandy, but what about proof points, right? So I like the proof points of Sonos and what they were able to do in terms of, you know, like 5 hours saved for every agent. That's actually a lot of dollars. When we start talking about agents, though, I love to get into the psychology of what is happening, because now we're in this pandemic, post-pandemic, you know, mid-pandemic, whatever you want to phrase it, and there's a lot of psychology with, we've sent everybody home. I had an organization that was so excited to tell me that they sent everybody home, and they sent them all hardware and things, and you know, they you know, work from home scenarios, and I said, so how's it going? And they said, well, we're hemorrhaging hardware. Okay, interesting. And we still have the same, if not more, attrition. And I'm like, well, did you take the perspective, though, that you sent work home with them? You didn't just send them home to work. And now their water cooler talk is with the dog and their kids, and it's with the neighbors, because they're at home all the time. So how do you plan for that? How do you plan for, you know, breaks? How do you plan for, you know, intraday adherence, things like that? How do you actually take some of those, you know, when they're in, you know, butts and seats in the call center, and now that's not the case. And so, you know, plus supervisors, you know, we know that a high, you know, like we lower attrition when we have high connectivity with, let's say, management, right? Because we can have course correction quickly. Well, now that's gone. So now what do you do, right? So there's things that psychologically I don't think, you know, organizations are thinking about. But when we implement these types of technologies and solutions, we get the benefit of, again, like you said, creating more insightful decisions. So, you know, in terms of you know, a 10% you know, decrease in average call time, as well as, you know, 6 weeks for a global go live, that is unheard of.
Yeah.
But it's actually becoming the norm now, which I love.
It's becoming the expectation, and you know, someone told me something about innovation that really stuck with me when I first came to Amazon. They said, when you do innovation right, it becomes transparent. And the example they were using was 2-day delivery. said, look, think back 10 years ago. Someone told you, I can go on a website, buy anything you want, and it will show up on your door in 2 days. Most people would have said, that's impossible. It can't be done. Now, it's just a fabric of your life. It's just an expectation. And I think that this is where Connect has really changed the game, because they've taken something that was a 6-month ordeal and now turned it into an expectation that, hey, you know what? I can turn this up really quickly. I can adjust. I can pivot when something changes in my business. And that's a real testament to doing innovation well.
Well, we've got other organizations too that are thinking about this from that perspective, where using chatbots and IVRs was so painful in the past, right? You'd hear the clunky robotic, like we were talking to somebody in Tron, you know, from the 70s. But now the neural voices are so smooth and trainable, right? Within like hours. And I can take your voice and actually train it to be, you know, the voice of all my IVR. And then, like you said, with all those intents, it's amazing. At the same time, I've had organizations now that are looking at this across their channels and saying, we've used telephony and the telephone channel as kind of our safety net. And it's our most expensive one, and that's what we use all the time. And then, well, and I'll do chat, right? Because chat's interesting. And I'll do maybe Apple Business Chat, or I'll do some of these other ones. Maybe go to social, right? Because I've got a contingency of younger folks that are there, right? And yet, what they're also finding is that now, if they enable these other channels, that channels like voice that are super expensive don't need to be used as much. In fact, we have a customer who's a bicycle manufacturer. Because of COVID, they weren't able to satisfy the customer demand utilizing voice. There's too many voice calls. So they got pretty bold and said, no more voice. We're going to deflect everything to our digital channels and email and everything else, and that's what we're going to use. And that's the only way they could scale the demand. Because real time can cause an overwhelming, problem. And then we get into these operational metrics that we pivot on for our business, like average handle time. Well, that's an inverse, metric to try to get people off the phone as fast as possible. But when you're trying to solve customer problems, create loyalty, you want to get them off as fast as possible, because they're just going to call back in and utilize double the resources, right? So we're seeing these types of trends happen more and more, and Sonos is a good example of them. GE Appliances, and I should mention too, so that Sonos was a full service cloud voice sitting on top of Amazon. GE is a little bit different, where they wanted to utilize, again, more channels and run with Service Cloud Voice with an existing call center environment too. And so we also now have the ability to give organizations of all flavors and sizes, like, hey, I may have an existing system in place. What do I do with it, right? And I do want to get to maybe this nirvana that we're talking about, but I don't, contractual, whatever. And so we have the ability to actually slow roll them and crawl, walk, run. And this is a great example in terms of what they were able to do. And just in terms of getting agents up in a matter of weeks, again, unheard of, but it's becoming the norm. I love this story too, because, like Randy had said, when the .com was looking at platforms, and this is a testament to how Amazon works, they look around quick and say, nope, nothing good enough. We'll build it ourselves, right? And maybe you guys do that. Well, we'll build it ourselves first, right? And we're not going to look, because we'll just build it better than everybody, right? Which is good, because having that platform, we did the same thing and said, listen, why are we killing ourselves with this? We already have the platform and the infrastructure. It's good enough for you guys, then it's definitely good enough for us. And so Salesforce support runs on top of this same solution. And it's given us an unbelievable ability to actually really solve, more problems. The key, though, is that if you can imagine us eating our own dog food and all the different clouds that we talk to, Marketing Cloud and Field Service and Service Cloud and all these other ones, now we're pulling them all together to facilitate our communication to our customers, our internal communication, things like that. And so it's been remarkable for us. Okay, let's do a little bit of walking through. What's that?
Yep, it's right after this.
Okay, so, uh-oh. Where are we? We're back? Okay. Oh, it's killing on there. Okay. So, part of this in terms of us sitting, adjacent to our core service, right, within the CRM, we sit in terms of Service Cloud Voice. And then we also have, as Randy mentioned, some flavors that we can do, utilizing CTI. So if somebody wanted to build to it. And I think there's an aspect to it where, hey, I'm a builder, I want to build everything. Great, there's a flavor for you. I don't have the abilities or the time to deal with it. I need to buy it. Awesome. Then we've got a flavor for you there too, and everything in between. But I think that's the key, especially to, I know this is a business track, but to the key Amazon audience is that these platforms are super extensible.
Absolutely.
Into all your different systems. So when we think about this from the perspective, we'll just go through this little demo so you can see. From a mobile device, right, a user's looking at information, and we should have done sweaters. That's what we should have done, but that's okay. So I make a call, and I'm calling into the call center. So we're going to switch from Bright support here, and you can't hear the IVR answering, but the IVR answers and says, what do you want? And then, again, through natural language, it's understanding the intents. So here's we get into the agent desktop, and the agent can actually see all of the different things that are going on and the work that needs to happen. And so from here, you can see there's new cases that have been created. We don't have to call these cases, we can call them whatever, but those cases could have come in through, you name it, number of channels. Well, the agent is picking up your call for sweaters, and we'll start to answer, and then have that dialogue and communication. Well, while they're doing that, if you can see down in the corner, the omnichannel support there, it may be coming across voice or chat or another channel. And so now you can actually see, because of who the customer is. Randy, you're a high value customer. You buy a lot of pet paraphernalia. And we can actually
$2,000, that's an expensive cat.
That's an expensive cat. $1,900 cat sweater. But what we can do is we can see the 360 of you very, very quickly and get to all that information, as well as update information right there, right? So in terms of use cases for obviously customers, calling in, but, for really rich sales environments and things like that, there's a mainstay. Now, there may be, some areas for a defect. So what I'm also utilizing is, again, that rich technology for doing real-time suggestions and real-time assist. This conversation actually is, can be happening again within a chat or a voice. And you can see there in next best action that this information is coming through and pulling that. So when I make that suggestion, I can actually, again, cut to the chase quickly and solve the problems. And what this is doing is empowering the agent to do more quickly. More, quickly, right? See the different channels that they're coming across. And then what this gives us the ability to do too is know and take this data of what channels have been used, what agents have that proficiency in those channels, and then also go back to workforce engagement and then start to plan for that too. And then obviously all the data and dashboards. The key to the next generation platforms for call center and customer service are really centered in voice, right? Voice has been here a long time. Still complex, it still is what it is. But what we're seeing is that the next generation of these platforms have three common pillars that are built inside of them. First, they have AI built from the ground up, right? And it's not just because it's interesting to say AI, but it's purpose-built type stuff that can be extensible and semantic and actually trainable for a given organization. Second, it's really rich with a lot of, really all the digital channels that are needed in today's world. And third, workforce engagement is natively there, right? And so that's what we're really trying to drive at, is making sure that those key pieces are natively part of that. And the only way we could do that is sitting on top of Amazon. So with that.
Yeah, great. Well, where do you go from here? Lots of options. Everything that we talked about today is available today. You don't have to wait for it. It's out there. It's GA. You can go onto Amazon or to Salesforce, look up Service Cloud Voice, walk through the different options there to set up trial systems, check it out, see if it meets your business needs. And we, of course, with Salesforce are here to help you in that journey, answer questions, help you apply the technologies to your specific use cases. If you want to go that route, but you just don't have the time or expertise, there's a wide range of partners, everything from small boutique firms up to large GSIs that we can engage with you to help you build out the solutions that you need. So you see there's a couple of links here where you can find more information.
I think the key too is that it not only is it available, it's globally available, and it's globally available in localized languages and stuff too.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, this is something that we're driving in a major part of our business going forward, and it's I mean, what we'll start to see is, it's Service Cloud Voice, but pretty soon it's because it's way more than just that. It'll start to be Salesforce Voice and Salesforce Call Center and things like that, right? That's applicable to the value proposition of all of our clouds.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because although we can't take live questions today, we did have a couple of questions that came in prior to the session that I thought we'd go ahead and address since we have a few minutes.
Yeah.
One of those was, the contact center now is often part of this bigger conversation around digital transformation. So a lot of customers are trying to rethink the whole way they engage their customers. And this is really one piece, although a very important piece. Could you maybe talk about what do you see from the Salesforce perspective when someone comes to you and they want to talk about digital transformation? First of all, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
And what is available? How do you coach them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, and what we tend to do is try to boil it back to, okay, what's the goal that they want to drive? Because most of the time, like you said in the beginning, that there's a limiting factor in what today's contact center platforms can even do and what they've been able to do. And so they're super operational focused, and yet we see these organizations saying, well, that's weird. I'm talking to my customer and gaining insights, but it's not doing anything to drive my strategic business goals. And I have no connection point into that. Whether it's horizontally integrated or vertically integrated, they don't have any of that information, and these have been silos.
Well,
right?
Or there's a lot of information gathered from my web property.
Yeah.
Shouldn't I know about that in my contact center when that person calls in and needs something?
Yeah. So the 360 is more than just an inward look at, hey, here's all this customer data. It's more along the lines of what's the journey and the steps that they've taken across, like you said, these different systems to collect all that information and see, well, maybe they're a prospective customer. Maybe they are a really, high value customer and they do a lot with us. Well, instead of like, if they do call in, well, why don't I, give them give our agents the ability to be, automated and put them into, let's say, a customer data platform where the marketing cloud can take and actually run loyalty programs, and they're mutually exclusive, but they're integrated at a layer that, again, like you said, is seamless because it's innovative.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's things like that are going on. So we have, our safety cloud and our core, sales cloud and field service and service cloud. That's, a bunch of, technologies. And what we're doing is we're pulling a lot of that information together now to help at the business layer wire up the existing data that they have, but also make it actionable in a very automated and intelligent way.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great. And the other question that came up, and we get asked this all the time, I don't know if you do as well, is, okay, this all sounds great. I have an existing team. What are the skill sets that I need to be able to really get the most value out of this type of solution? I always say, well, that's easy. They need to be a contact center expert, they need to be a Salesforce expert, and they need to be a cloud expert. Does anybody here meet that? All right, we're going to talk to you guys
2,000 people
after
in the
the
audience.
show.
It's amazing.
We've got a job for you. That doesn't exist. The reality is that
Liars.
when we bring folks in from our side, we look for at least one of those strengths, either really knowledgeable about contact centers so you understand the industry, the technology, the terminology, you can translate that, and we will teach you the cloud. Or you're very strong in the cloud and we'll teach you the contact center. My advice is find someone strong in one or the other, and then bring the other side up to speed, and we can help you do that. I'd love to hear from the Salesforce side if you run into the same thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting because it's also, we actually have to, not only, like let's say it's a call center expert, some of it they bring with some legacy thinking with them too, right? So then when they're asking about, well, what do I do when this happens? And it's like, no, that's already done for you. You don't have to do that. Oh, what do I do when this happens? Oh, that's already done for you. Don't worry about that. It's already here, right? Oh, okay. Well, then can I change it? Yeah, especially IT. IT loves it because, again, they're managed services. All these are here. And I think it's also healthy to not only have that Salesforce expert that maybe knows how to extend Salesforce, but also maybe somebody that can understand how to potentially extend the Amazon stack too, right?
Yeah.
So it's not, I mean, again, it's hard where we live and sell and talk all the time. It's hard to talk about Lambdas and CloudFormation templates and all that kind of stuff. However, there is a part where you have to talk about what those are to make sure that, like for instance, if you're going to be speaking ASR, how do I train and tune the models to have a custom, to apply to my semantics, right? Can I do that? Yeah, but you don't need a data scientist to do it, right?
Yeah.
Now, can you have them in the environment? Absolutely, because part of this too is, AI isn't just a one-size-fits-all.
That's right.
It's also multidimensional. So the data and the exhaust that I get out of this environment, I can certainly take and train and tune and do neat and interesting things. That's why, like, quality management, I think, can be thrown on its ear now, and because now everybody has the primitives and the data to drive quality for you, not quality defined by somebody else.
Yeah. Very exciting. As we like to say at Amazon, it's always day one. I think that's very true in this space, and really excited about where we're going to go with this. So Chris, thank you for joining us today. Thank you, audience, for being here, participating. We hope you found something useful. Please fill out the survey if you would afterwards. We love feedback, good or bad. That will help us to bring more content that you find valuable in future sessions.
Love it. Thanks, Randy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.